I have a message to listeners. If you're not watching on youtube.com/Wedge Live, we're so adorable in our hammocks here, podcasting from our hammocks. You should go and watch us and look at us. Just a couple of large, very large humans.
Yeah.
Like burritos in our hammocks, talking about park politics.
Yeah, maybe two of the tallest people that have ever been filmed in hammocks.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.
If I can launch myself into this hammock without maybe murdering you, it'd be the most violent thing that to ever happen in the Kenwood neighborhood. Maybe I should get in first. Should we pull you out so that I can get in and then you get in under me? Does that feel like the safest way to do it?
I don't know. I was going to let you use my knee to step up, but...
Oh, should I do that? I'll have to take I don't want to use my shoe on your knee.
Oh, that's fine.
Are we going to show our feet on camera?
No.
Do I have to blur feet when I do this?
Yeah, you should definitely make it instead of blurring, just put the black censored box over our feet.
Okay. Prepare yours. Good. Oh, geez, I'm getting dirt.
I'm fine.
All
Don't
over.
worry about it. You're almost there. Don't roll out the back.
Yeah, that would be awful at this height, rolling out the back of your hammock. Okay. This is a special episode of the Wedge Life podcast for a lot of reasons. One of which is that me and my guest are in hammocks. This is the first hammock cast. So Jason Garcia is below me in the lower hammock. This is a bunk hammock situation if you're listening. Jason Garcia is running for park board in District 4, which includes large swaths of Ward 7 and 3 and 10. It includes the Wedge.
And a little bit of Ward 6.
A little bit of Ward 6 too. Look at you prepping. So welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here in beautiful Kenwood Park in South Minneapolis.
And if you're listening to this episode, you're missing out. Go to youtube.com/Wedge Live because we are literally at Kenwood Park in hammocks on top of each other. One hammock over the other. This has never been done before. And this is also special because, Jason, you are a frequent contributor to the Wedge Live podcast.
It's true. Yeah.
So it's good to have you in your role as a candidate. And I'll be honest with the audience, I encourage Jason to run as a friend, not in my role as a newsman, because I think you would be just excellent in the role.
Well, thank you, John. Yeah, it's something that certainly even a month ago I didn't necessarily have on my radar. So it's kind of a surprise to be running. However, I do believe that the race in District 4 is very important this year. So I'm happy to be running and hope to, let people know that I have a good vision and I really want to get people's support to be their next District 4 MPRB commissioner.
What do you think are the top issues?
In talking to people, there are a few things that come up frequently. I hear a lot about access to parks. People in the Kenwood and East Isles neighborhood are certainly fortunate to have a really beautiful park like Kenwood in their area, as well as Lake of the Isles and even a little bit to the west of here, Cedar Lake. But, there are a lot of parts of the city that don't have really nice big parks like this. And there are a lot of people that want to see a more equitable vision of park use. And along with that comes accessibility. There are a lot of parks in our system that maybe don't have the best walkways or accessibility via transit. And that can really leave a lot of people out. So I think that's a really important issue. I think things like park maintenance, making sure that there are lights being replaced, any uneven spots in the parkways or the walkways through parks, that those are being maintained and kept safe for people who are running, walking, biking, scootering through the parks. That's a really important thing. And I think a lot of people really want to feel like the parks are more activated. Certainly it's great to be out here on a Friday evening in a nice tranquil part of the park, but there are a lot of people that would like to see more activities, more community engagement done in our parks, and I think that's a really great view of the future as well.
What I like about this park is that we're the only ones here in this wide open field, and it's quiet enough to use as a podcast studio here.
Yeah, I really love Kenwood Park. It's I've done a lot of activities here. A few summers ago, when we were hosting some community barbecues, this was the park that we kind of wrapped up the summer at over Labor Day weekend. It's a really nice big area, easy to get to. It is right on a bus line, not one of the main bus lines, but you can transfer and get off the bus right at the corner of the park here. Going back several years, one of the first places that I ever met friend of the show, Kristen Crabtree, was in this park on the other side of the hill. Some of our friends used to organize a weekly game night where we would come and play things like frisbee or kickball or even capture the flag.
That's interesting because I think you and I both have an affinity for this park just independent of each other. I don't know if I've ever been to this park with you.
I don't think so.
I also come here a lot, and it's not like I live right next to it. It's a great place. Park politics can often be like, who are the dozen people who live across the street from the park are
Right.
the most activated, and they show up to all the meetings, and if anything is going to change about the park, they're up in arms.
Yeah.
Right? And that's how I think of park politics.
Sure.
It can be contentious and people get very passionate and upset, and it often just involves the people who live adjacent to the park. Whereas a lot of people who are using our parks, like, we all pay for it, right?
Yeah.
Parks are for everyone, not just the people who live across the street. And yet the politics are dominated by people who live right there. So how do we change that?
With a lot of politics, there's this concept that, out of sight, out of mind. If you're not seeing your neighborhood park or a park in your area every day, you probably don't think about it that much. Or if your only interaction with the park in your neighborhood is driving past and seeing, a bunch of people at the corner waiting for the bus or things like that, you probably think, people don't really use this park. They just are here because of the bus stops or things like that. And, the way to combat that is to activate the parks more and get people more involved and spending more time at their local parks, so that they have that investment in them as well. And, it is, I think, very easy for people who live across the street from a park and kind of feel like it becomes a part of their property, to feel a lot of ownership toward that. And that can definitely be a positive thing when you're talking about people coming together to help take care of the parks and things like that. But it can also be a drawback where it makes people feel like they have exclusive control of the park, and they want to exert that control. So I think, there's a lot of engagement that can be done to bring people into parks, to have more activities in the parks, to bring people in. I would love to see things like more neighborhood festivals or things like that happening in parks. Where it's possible, I would like to see more thoughtful development of the parks to make them more exciting places to go. And especially as a parent, I can remember bringing my son to the parks as a very young child. We used to live not far from Bryant Square Park. down in South Uptown. And that was kind of, since we lived in an apartment, that was sort of the backyard. And, it was a 5-minute walk for us. Those were some really great memories that I have with my son of being out and enjoying the spring and summer weather, watching him run around and, go down the slides and play on the swings and things like that. So I think if we can make the parks welcoming to everybody and accessible to everybody, people will end up taking more ownership and feeling a more connected vision or a connected version of what they feel to the parks already.
Remember back during COVID when they would close the parkways so that it could accommodate all the pedestrian traffic that was going to the lakes, for example?
Yeah.
And everyone, I thought that was really popular at the time. People loved it. I don't know who objected. We were doing the social distancing thing and people wanted to be outside. And it was great. It's nice for someone like me who enjoys being away from car traffic. I don't know who goes to the lakes to be around loud car traffic, for example. Who is against closing the parkways? And so there was, I recently, within the last few years, there was an opportunity for the park board. I forget if it was a pilot project to test temporary closures. We're going to install some barricades that can be activated on certain days, maybe weekend days for festivals, so that people can use the parkways. And, for that day, no car traffic. And I feel like the current park board is so into this culture war against non-car transportation that they voted that down. And I thought it could have been this non-controversial, nice thing that everyone could enjoy. Can you speak about that? What are your feelings on things like that?
Yeah, I definitely support having more access to the parks via a lot of different modes of transit and transportation. I think, a lot of times the pushback comes from people who feel like they have to drive or they feel very dependent on cars for their own transportation. So they feel like, hey, you're cutting me out. But I think that, when you look at doing a pilot plan or even, taking specific times of day or things like that, I think it's something that you could work out. I think, you're always going to have people who are against every plan that you bring. A lot of it just has to do with how you present the plan and whether you have the capacity to carry it through. And inspiring a shared vision around the parks is really important. And I think that's something that maybe we haven't done as a city in quite some time. Everything has been sort of status quo. And that, that's easy, right? To just keep the inertia of things the way they are. Just keep the wheel turning in one direction. And it definitely takes more energy to switch that up and try something different. But I think when you look at our city and the diverse experiences of all of the people who live here, there's definitely a segment of people who aren't served by car transit, and they have the right to enjoy the parks in a safe way as well. So I think there are ways to accommodate times where, maybe there is some restricted traffic around some of the parkways on a rolling basis or things like that.
Yeah, open streets on the parkways.
Yeah, I think since you talked about that during the context of COVID, I think we all remember during the phases of early COVID when a lot of grocery stores or other stores selling, essential items would say from 7 a.m. until 9 a.m. is our seniors only time, or people who are immunocompromised can come in, and everybody has to be wearing a mask, everybody has to be maintaining their distancing and things like that. And nobody had a problem with that. Nobody was saying, oh, I should be able to go into the grocery store whenever I want and not accommodate other people. So I think it's, that being able to get people to a shared understanding of what it means is the vital piece there.
Park board politics is so nasty. I don't know if you've noticed that. And for as long as I've lived in Minneapolis, it feels like the park board is like 2 notches more conservative than the city council. Like, no matter what kind of city council we have at the time, the park board is always like 2 notches more conservative. And like, it's the same voters. And so the only thing I can think is like, voters aren't paying attention to the park board as much, and nobody wants to run for the park board. Like, our choice of candidates is very limited often, and sometimes it's uncontested. It's just whoever decided to run in that district is the winner.
Yeah.
Or the conservative candidate has so much more money and the progressive is a little outgunned because nobody's paying attention. Why do you want to do this? It's part-time pay, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of headache, it's potentially a lot of bad blood and people, being very upset with you. Why do you want to do this to yourself?
You're very good at painting all of the negatives, and I'm not going to argue with you that those things are incorrect. I do think that parks politics tends to be more conservative, like you said, because of who has the capacity to run, who can afford to have a pretty emotionally intensive part-time job like that and not make a lot of money at it. For me, the reason that I want to do it is because I think it's important, and I think looking forward at, the future in Minnesota and Minneapolis, the parks are kind of our connection to nature, and nature is going to be changing as climate changes, and it's going to be even more important for us to take care of the parks that we have, try to set up more of a bulwark against climate change. And, in my day job, I work with farmers, local farmers, to help find markets for their food, to help with some hunger relief organizations and things like that. So thinking about food security and the ways that the parks can impact that is important. And I just think that at this particular time, with the federal government the way it is, it's going to be crucial for all of the different branches of government at the municipal level, the county level, the state level, to be functioning at their optimal capacity and to be able to cooperate, not to get territorial and defensive and try to push problems off to each other, but to really come together to solve a lot of the issues that we're going to be facing over the next few years.
You have appeared on the Wedge Live podcast, I believe, with do you have a defund the police poster in the background occasionally?
Yeah, it's not been in the background in a while. It's packed away from my last move.
Are you worried that, because I've had people combing through the Wedge Live YouTube archives, and I'm currently, I can't talk about it, but I'm the subject of some legal wrangling, and
Sure.
multiple procedures have been started. Taylor and I are involved. You may have seen it in the news.
Yeah,
I'm wondering, are you worried someone will comb through and find a screenshot, and if they haven't already, they're listening to me now and they're going to do it, to find your defund the police poster? Can you talk about you will have some role in how the parks has a police department, and as a park board member, you'll have a role in voting on things that affect the police department and affect public safety. Can you talk about your public safety platform?
Yeah, so I think as far as the poster, I don't take stances like that lightly, as has been pointed out by you on your podcast many times. And, you recently had DA Bullock on, and you had some real great insights into the state of MPD, and how the phrase defund the police was sort of misrepresented as being like, if you don't give the police every single thing they ask for, that means that you're for lawlessness and crime and things like that. But I think that it is a measure of good governance that you can look at how a department is being run and say, this is a department that costs us millions and millions of dollars in settlements. It costs us millions of dollars in overtime. It costs us money in all of these different ways that we don't necessarily see a return for. And I also think, in terms of the Parks Police, that's a very small piece of that pie. But I think that making sure that we're spending our money effectively toward public safety is key. We've seen MPD reduce their own numbers dramatically over what was the early pandemic and aftermath of George Floyd's murder. So, there are a lot of ways to look at what that means. And I think, especially when it comes to park safety, a lot of the things that people have brought up to me are things like making sure that lights are on and that the park seems safe when you're walking through and it's getting dark, or making sure that you have access to facilities like restrooms or places to store your bike safely if you choose to bike to a park and things like that. There are park police that are involved in our public safety system, and I have high standards for police. I think if we have the police system that we do, which, obviously big segments of Minneapolis want to have police in MPD and parks and on Metro Transit, I think then what we have to do is make sure that we're holding them to very high standards and that we're expecting the most out of them, and that, we're supporting them in ways to make sure that we're getting the best return on that investment.
I have a message to listeners. If you're not watching on youtube.com/Wedge Live, we're so adorable in our hammocks here, podcasting from our hammocks. You should go and watch us and look at us. Just a couple of very large humans.
Yeah.
Like burritos in our hammocks, talking about park politics.
Yeah, maybe two of the tallest people that have ever been filmed in hammocks.
It's true. We are the largest people in Minneapolis together in one place, one on top of the other.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the cannabis rules that went into effect. I've got a policy. My personal policy on smoking is smoking anything is don't do it near me.
Sure.
Right? I appreciate a rule that says no smoking near me or anyone else who doesn't want it in the parks.
Sure.
So what is the current policy in the parks with regard to cannabis and as it relates to smoking, like regular cigarettes too? Like, do you agree with what it is? And please explain what it is, because I don't think I could do it.
So the big discussion recently was whether or not to make it a petty misdemeanor, so that like people can receive a citation for it, as opposed to just being told like, hey, knock it off. And obviously, I think we get into an interesting area when you talk about things like that, because there is a lot of gray area. Like when you say, don't do it near me, what does that mean? Does that mean we're close enough that you could potentially inhale smoke? Does it mean far enough away that you can't smell smoke? Or, be it cigarette smoke or marijuana smoke or things like that. And I think that's one of the real tough things to parse, is everybody has different thresholds for their own personal comfort. And it's really hard to regulate around individual comfort. And I think, in a lot of cases, there are people who have, particularly Black people and people of color, who have been criminalized by our current police system for somebody else smelling smoke around them. When I lived in the Powderhorn neighborhood, somebody called the police on my neighbor who was sitting on his front porch smoking a cigar. He had just gotten home from working third shift, and we were kind of talking as I was getting ready to mow the lawn at the house I was living in at the time. And somebody called the police and said that there was this man on the street smoking something that smelled funny. So police showed up, checked to see if he had any marijuana on him. It turned out it was just a grape Swisher Sweet that somebody thought smelled funny and needed police intervention. And that's really what I want to avoid. I want certainly people to feel comfortable and safe in our parks, but those are often two different things, and we conflate them a lot, where someone feels discomfort because someone is doing something like smoking or being loud or, having a large gathering or things like that, that other people feel is disturbing their peace, and therefore is unsafe. And that's really the line that I think we as a society have to be better at navigating. Oftentimes those things are easily resolved with a conversation rather than making it something that could potentially involve police, knowing that policing and law enforcement is so skewed along racial lines that it can really cause genuine harm to another party.
Is there anything you came here today you're like, I hope we can talk about this. I hope this factor in the race for Park Board District 4 comes up in this conversation?
I think one of the things that I've heard a lot about in talking to people about their vision for parks and things like that is being considerate of the workers who make the parks accessible and keep them in good order. It's really easy to think about parks and our parkways and our urban tree canopy as just sort of things that exist, that they just naturally occur here. Things are great. We're Minneapolis. We have this top 5 park system year after year after year. But it's also important to think about the fact that there are many, many people. The Parks Board is the largest employer of youth in our city. There are so many parks employees that come to work every day, regardless of the weather, that keep these parks in great working condition, help keep people safe, help make sure that we have good facilities. And it's important to make sure that we take care of them. I want people to think of our park jobs as really good jobs, and I want them to be jobs that people are excited to have. I want people to be eager to try to get a parks job because they know it will support their family, it will give them a good standard of living, and that MPRB will take care of them as people as well as workers.
So the thing you wanted to talk about was pandering to the all-powerful Park Workers Union.
Yeah, sure. Well, we can say it that way.
So I would say it.
Yeah. No, I think that one of the things that I have seen a lot in different levels of government, be it Park Board, be it our city government, be it schools, is schools are maybe the one where the frontline workers of teachers and paraprofessionals are most visible. And, we've seen a lot of labor difficulties between the Minneapolis School Board and teachers over the past few years as well. But we don't often talk about how labor affects other parts of our city government and the city enterprise as a whole. And especially over the past few years, we've seen this resurgence in Minneapolis of labor power and many unions, especially in the service sector, starting up. So yeah, I think it does warrant mentioning that people take care of all of this stuff. It's not just something that happens on its own, and we have to consider what that means when we are planning our long-term future in these parks.
So what have you been doing as part of your campaign? Are you calling delegates? Do you have enough money?
I do not have very much money. I just launched my Act Blue campaign to get some donations. My campaign website should be up in the next day or so. We're just getting the behind the scenes aspects of that set up. Having to find a web developer to work with me has been a crucial step, since I don't usually know too many of those. Yeah, so in my campaign, I have been just trying to do some engagement, via social media, word of mouth. It's been difficult because there hasn't been any access to the city delegate lists.
Oh, really?
For most of the areas that I would be representing. There's been some pretty intense turnover at the Minneapolis DFL.
I have heard. The turnover is your opponent.
So, hopefully now that there is new leadership, we'll have access to those delegate lists, and that will make it easier for us to reach out to people. I'm really fortunate that I have a lot of great friends who want to volunteer, who want to help door knock and make phone calls and help out with, designing cool logos or things like that. So in that regard, I'm really fortunate, and I'm excited to really start that process of door knocking and meeting people and kind of talking to them about what their interests are in terms of the parks.
Do you enjoy the one-on-one talking to people thing?
I do.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I think I enjoy that more than talking to a big crowd of people, for sure.
So like going door to door, talking to dozens of people at a time, one after the other, like you're not going to get exhausted by that?
Maybe I will. I don't know. Like, I've done door knocking for other candidates, and obviously that's different when it's always easier to go and talk up somebody else than yourself. But I do think that right now there is a lot of appetite for discussion around all sorts of political aspects of the city. I think I may have mentioned this on one of your podcasts before, that on a different political podcast that I listened to, they mentioned that, there isn't a monoculture anymore where everybody watches Seinfeld or even like Game of Thrones or something like that, but it feels like now the American monoculture is politics, because we're also surrounded by it, and here in Minneapolis we have an election every year. So I do think that there are people who are interested, and that's what really energizes me about those discussions, is when people are curious, people want to know things, people want to tell me their perspectives. Where it gets like more boring for me is, when you knock 6 or 7 doors in a row and nobody answers, or people answer the door and just say, "Oh, I'm not interested," and things like that.
Well, by the time this episode airs, your website will be up.
Yeah.
At jasongarcia.org?
That's correct.
Okay. And that's Garcia spelled Garcia?
Yes. Perfect.
I think we're at the end. Is there anything else you have to say?
Yeah, I wish you well in all your legal wrangling. I'm glad that you have lawyer Dan to take care of you, and Taylor. Yeah, I'm going to be announcing over social media in the next couple days here, kind of a campaign kickoff meet and greet event that it will be at a park that is near and dear to your heart.
Oh, really? Is it going to be Mueller Park?
It will be.
Oh, that's interesting. And the DFL City Convention is where we'll be endorsing park board candidates. When is that?
That is July 20th. Down ballot, quote unquote, races like BET and park board are on day 2. They're on Sunday. So especially if you are a city delegate or an alternate, please make sure you show up on Sunday, and I'd love to have your support. And, if you are an alternate, there's probably a good chance that you will be upgraded on that second day. So that's a real great opportunity for you to have your voice heard.
I'm an alternate. I'll be there.
You better be.
Should I have you do a recommendation? Do you have any? Did you come with a recommendation?
I started a new job recently where I work with immigrant and BIPOC farmers. So my recommendation, now that it's the season, is to go out and hit up your local farmers market. Help out these small growers who are out there oftentimes as a second job, working late at night to tend to fields and harvest their crops to sell at farmers markets. A lot of times it's a family operation where people are working pretty much every day of the week. Sometimes these farmers are going to 2, 3, 4 farmers markets a week, trying to make money from their products. So go out, support your local farmers market, get some nice fresh vegetables. There's lots of cool products that people make and bring to farmers markets now. And there is a new Uptown farmers market opening this summer. It will be in the lot next to 7 Points on Lake Street. And I believe that is on Thursday evenings from 4 to 7 or 4 to 8, something like that.
No, when are they starting?
I believe they are starting the first or second week of June.
All right. Thank you, Jason Garcia, Park Board candidate for District 4 here in Minneapolis. Again, youtube.com/Wedge Live to see the both of us here having this conversation in hammocks, one on top of the other. The degree of difficulty for this episode was so high.
Yeah,
so
I think
much.
we spent as much time setting up as we did recording the episode.
Right, I had to teach Jason how to use a hammock.
It's true. It's true. I'm not as dedicated of a member of the leisure class as John.
That's right. I really love to come out to Kenwood Park and just sit in a hammock.
Yeah, maybe some of these summer weekends when you're not too busy hosting emergency bike rides, we can have emergency hammock sessions. We can discuss policy and do kind of a hammock meet and greet.
I have honestly thought about holding hammock-themed events because riding my bike, being in a hammock here in Kenwood Park, 2 of my favorite things, and I like to share with everyone my favorite things. Although having more people around could ruin it because I like the solitude of being here in Kenwood. But this has been the Wedge Live podcast. I'm your host, John Edwards. Thank you for listening, and thanks to Jason Garcia. Goodbye.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.